Reading 72 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll, Volume 3. Great Animal House, Easter, April 5th, 1947. Neutralizing Force. Triads. On one occasion I was speaking to Mr. Ouspensky, and he interrupted me by saying, "Why are you so tragic?" I was naturally very surprised to be told that I spoke tragically. You know now, perhaps, how people tend to speak about their lives and difficulties tragically, and what this tragic sense can drag people down to. I said I did not think I spoke tragically. He said, "Yes, you do not see it yet, but this is a sign of a bad neutralizing force to speak from. One must learn not to be tragic." This was long ago, when early meetings were being held at the time in Harley Street. I remember the place, the people, even the expressions and postures, but I got nothing from what he said except resentment. That is to say, I had not become in any way conscious of speaking tragically. All I felt was being hurt and surprised. Certainly, looking back, I see I did speak tragically. Tragedy, speaking tragically, is a very fond self-luxury that can attach itself to everybody. Everything can be taken in a tragic, dramatic, negative way. That is, one invents oneself, say, as a tragically suffering man or woman. However, all this must later on become conscious to oneself. Then it is overcome. For to make a thing fully conscious to oneself is to overcome it. It is only the semi-conscious or not conscious that has power, the not yet quite seen, the not yet really acknowledged. I often thought about what Mr. Ouspensky said in regard to it. Being tragic is a sign of a bad neutralizing force. At the time I understood next to nothing about this term, neutralizing force, and, as I said, I refused to admit that I spoke tragically. In fact, I would then never have admitted I had any self-pity or vanity. Such a state of sleep is possible. Tonight I am going to speak of triads, and so, therefore, of neutralizing force. Let us begin with the general idea of triads, as the work teaches. The work teaches that every manifestation is the result of three forces: active, passive, and neutralizing. For any one manifestation to take place, three forces are necessary. No manifestation can take place without the cooperation of three forces. Everything that manifests itself is due to three forces. We see a manifestation and think it is one thing, but it is not due to one thing, but to three things. That is, three forces meeting at a point, which produce the manifestation. Therefore, every manifestation is a complex thing, not one thing, but three things in a certain balance. Now, in order to understand as simply as possible how every manifestation is the result of three forces and not one force, let us begin with the idea that you want something, and let us call the wanting of something active force. Now, simply wanting something will not lead to you having it. This fact makes many people early sick at heart. They say, "if only," and so on, and become negative. The world is full of imbeciles of this kind who simply want something and, not getting it, become sick-hearted and so tragic. Now, if you want something, you have to calculate on the existence of second force, or passive force, which is the force of resistance to what you perhaps, quite simply and innocently, want and expect to be given. This second force meets everything that you want at every turn, at every point. So the work teaches that if you want something, if you make an aim, say, you must calculate this second force, which will at once oppose what you want, what you aim at. You have, say, a fantasy, the idea that you will be a wonderful woman, adored by every man, or a wonderful man, adored by every woman, and so on. Yes, in fantasy this is easy. People are absorbed in similar fantasies all day long, but to make fantasy equal to reality takes time and effort. Why? Because in fantasies there is no second force, or very little, let us say, for here something else comes in that is very interesting. I will say here simply that no fantasies are quite satisfactory, and second force appears in many ways. Now, in reality, if you want something, you will inevitably have to meet the opposing force to what you want. That is, second force, or force of resistance to what you want, and contend with it. Let us say that you wish to make everyone converted to your own idea of life, and to make them think as you do. Take this as first or active force. You advance into life and meet with perhaps indifference, or derision, or criticism, or contempt. You become disappointed, or tragic, or full of self-pity. Why? Because you have not calculated the effects of second force. What is second force here? Well, you can see what it is. People are not interested. They do not believe you. They are satisfied with what they have. So other people are second force. So you fail and become tragic, misunderstood, and so on. Yes, but why? Because you want something and do not see how second force will inevitably appear and inevitably oppose what you want. People call it the devil, but it is the Trinity, the three forces at work: active, passive, and neutralizing. Now, the relationship between first and second force is established by the nature and quality of third force. The third force brings the first and second forces into connection, and so it is called sometimes connecting force. You will now see why O said to me that speaking tragically is a sign of a bad neutralizing force. A bad neutralizing force will relate me badly to second force, to all that is opposed to what I want. Everything will then overcome me. When active force, and here we are calling it what you want, has a bad or wrong neutralizing force with the force of the opposition, that is, second force, then second force becomes active force. The whole triad is reversed. The two forces, active and passive, reverse their roles. Instead of using second force through right or clever connecting force to work out practically the end or aim contained in active force, the triad reverses and opposing force becomes triumphant. That is, it turns into active force. Now, this can happen all the time to everyone because, for one reason, people want what is impossible, save in fantasy. We are told in this work not to make too many requirements. If you make many requirements, then you will, in so many words, be up against life all the time. That is, up against that aspect of life which is second or opposing force. You will never learn anything, never gain by experience, because there is no effort to deal cleverly with second force. You will see now that second force is necessary for the development of individuality. That is, how you individually, and from yourself, deal with the inevitable second force. If you deal cleverly with this second force, it will give you results, and instead of being simply a blind opposing force, will become gradually what you want. You do not instantly become negative when opposed. You try this way and that, and gradually this formidable opposition yields and becomes what you want. Or, let us say, rather what is possible in your wanting. Then active force as what you want, and let us bring in here the idea of what you will, by modifying itself, attains through a right neutralizing force its aim. G said, patience is the mother of will. That is, will, passing through patience, as third force, attains what it wants. But to will, to want blindly, is not clever, and leads only into a hard, uncompromising force of opposition. That is, into a reversal of the triad, and so to negative states. In the Gospels, Christ spoke a great deal about cleverness in dealing with life and its situations. Tonight, we will go no further, but later on return to this subject, namely, a clever neutralizing force.